A one, a two, a you know what to do.
Let's crack on.
I don't know if you can say crack that much.
I am a cracker, so. We're gonna have comments just like, what is that honking? Like, people are gonna be like, what's wrong with my speakers?
Johnny, cracker and honky all within the first 2 minutes?
We have a limited amount of time, a limited amount of budget to pay special effects guys to do this. And those special effects guys are going, oh shit, how are we transitioning from this bit to this bit? Flash to white, okay. Okay, pause. 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 There we go. Yeah, so it's like I was saying, it was literally like I was saying before, like Chadwick Boseman literally actually centralizes himself among all those characters in a very physical way, and he's just turning and he's firing shots as he goes, and he's just going round and round and around, and he is literally owning that room, and he is owning that space, and he's doing a great job of it. And I think the key with that as an actor is just to allow yourself the space to go there. Essentially, nothing is too big until the director tells you it's too big. The key is what he's doing is he's focusing not on the lines, not on the character. He's focusing on the space that he's in and the people that he's around, and he's putting his attention on the moment, and he's allowing himself to just flow with what happens. And kind of let the text lead him a little bit.
Yeah. And I think this is where the divide happens in audiences a little bit, because this is the film, right?
And I love that. That's my favorite thing. I was like, as soon as this started happening, I was like, this is the movie. I love this movie already.
And I was exactly the opposite. I was like, this is the movie? Nothing's gonna happen. And I think, I think there's something to be said about both. I think to have a cast and a script that can carry itself through with literally just watching people exist is a very powerful thing. But I also appreciate, if you like plot, it's arguably thin on the ground. Just a little bit.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
It's always present. There is maybe isn't as. I mean, if we're looking at like showing you things and like really trying to bring you, and that's what I like. That's the writers other. It's like it's. I think it's something with audiences these days. I think we find it hard then to engage. Which, I mean, if we're talking about like say the 1950s, but this sort of thing, and movies were. Yeah, it's the essence of where good acting and good movie making comes from, is the depiction of life. I need to change my battery. So I really like that scene just because like it's one that sticks out in my head. Like Viola Davis, like the movie's named after her character. She doesn't enter till like 15 minutes into the movie.
It's true, yeah.
And she makes like quite an entrance, because it's a very interesting entrance, because you can tell that there's something about her that isn't quite all powerful. Do you know what I mean? But you can also tell about her that she takes whatever power that she can get.
Yeah.
And that she will, she won't take any like prisoners or anything like this. The derisive looks she's giving around the rooms, just don't fuck with me, don't fuck with me, don't fuck with me, don't fuck with me,
Yeah.
But there's something else about her character in the way she walks and the way she like holds herself there's an insecurity to it. And it's really, really interesting character work. It's really, really interesting because it's like there's the combination of two different physical processes going on to create a representation of who this character is.
And I think it must be something that's super unnerving, right? Like you go to a place where generally people who are black are accepted, and she kind of steps out with this swag where, you know, she's from the South, maybe they're not accepted as much, and you have this battle of, you know, I'm supposed to feel comfortable around my people, and in this situation I don't, and it plays it very well because obviously she has this strength of character which you see throughout the whole movie, but then having that kind of upset a little bit where maybe she doesn't want to have to be powerful in this situation. Maybe she would like to just to be in the space, and she doesn't have that option.
Maybe she'd just like to wander through the hotel lobby.
Exactly.
But she as well, she claims a lot of power by taking her girl's arm and everything like that. But then there's that moment that she takes her nephew, and it's a beautiful moment that happens in her face because it's a really strong moment of taking her girl's arm, and then there's almost a second guess that goes on, and she's like, no, I can get arrested for this. And she takes her nephew as well.
All right, Levy, you right. I apologize. Ain't none of my business you spooked up by the white man.
All right, see, that's the shit I'm talking about. Y'all back up and leave Levy alone.
Oh, come on, Levy.
He's so good.
He's so good.
He was so good, man.
So the lead up to this is it's kind of this moment where he interacts with Sturdivant, who owns the studio, and he kind of walks up to him and says about the songs, and he's kind of playing up to him and being jovial and nice, and they obviously kind of take the mick out of him for it. And there's that kind of swoop where we have everything's banterous, and then they push it just a little bit far, tip him over the edge, and then it starts to escalate, as we saw before.
You know, ain't said nothing about you, he ain't said about me. You just taking it all wrong.
Ain't meant nothing bad, Levy.
Levy got to be Levy. You don't need nobody messing with him about the white.
And what's really interesting about that is it takes a lot for an actor to be able to let things hit them in that way, you know? Because it's very easy to get sucked into the joviality of the scene, but he's allowing the circumstances of his character to sort of drive how the dialogue is hitting him. So rather than getting sucked up in the moment, which is ha 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 ha, he is instead observing the circumstances of his character and saying, right, no, this is hitting me in this way, and allowing it to hit him in that way, and allowing it to affect him on a much deeper emotional level, because of what we're about to hear, partially, but also because of what he's trying to achieve. But it's a real sign that he's of how good he is, and the fact that it builds in that way as well. The speed at which he starts talking, everything like that, the power that starts sort of emanating from him. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's a really, really good scene.
I went with a little boy, 8 years old. My mama was frying up some chicken when them men's come in their house.
Monologues are really difficult. Full stop. And they're kind of seen as a judge of acting, and I think there's a flaw in that, monologues are essentially storytelling, and if you can tell a story well, you can do a monologue well. What makes this really good acting is the fact that he's not just telling us a story. He's telling us a story in context with what's just happened in this scene. He hasn't just gone off into, story mode of there's my wife. Hey, wife. Well, what was I talking about?
You were saying when you're going into storytelling mode.
Yeah, he hasn't gone into storytelling mode, and that's something that you can see an actor do. When they go, they'll be in the moment, they'll be talking to a character, and then they'll be like, I was 8 or 9 years old. It's that moment of now I'm over here. He's not over there. You can see him in this scene, playing that scene back in his head, but he's still very much in the moment. He's still very much embracing what's happening around him, and that's a credit to him, man, because that's so hard to do. It's so easy to get wrapped up in the idea of a monologue as such, rather than him using this monologue to explain, no, I don't study the white man, as they say in this. Like they say, study, right? Yeah,
they're spooked up by him.
Yeah, I'm not spooked up by them. This is why.
It's also one of the first times that we hear the score not be that kind of bluesy, rhythmic beat that we normally hear throughout the film. This is the first time we hear kind of an orchestral tone that comes over the top of it, which I think just helps us to kind of displace a little bit from the space that we are in, and understand that we are talking about events that are real and did happen, and taking us outside of the room and the context of the film and just being like, hey, there are things there that we need to think about. The other thing as well, and this is credit to any performer who can do this, Chadwick Boseman has very few shots of this monologue because you don't need them. Usually when you watch a sequence of any kind, editors will chop a lot in order to keep things interesting if they are not interesting. But in this case, they absolutely did not need to. I imagine he delivered every single time. So why would you need to cut around something that's already awesome?
Perfectly put. The other thing I want to credit is actually the reactions of the other people in the room.
Yes.
And actually what your own perception does when you're watching something and how that affects an actor. So the reactions of the the reactions. Sorry, my cat wants some attention.
Is it the big one?
Little one, obviously. So the other people in the room are reacting appropriately. They're not overplaying anything. They're allowing him to have his space and have the moment. But they are engaged with him. And the reason that you can tell that they're engaged with him is because you can see their own characters coming through and what they understand about this story that he's telling. Now, as an actor, what you have to understand is that the audience are going to put their own perceptions on this. So my first thought when I saw their reactions, especially the old guy, was he's heard this story 1,000 times. My cat agrees. For all I know, the actor was hungry. And that's the look he was giving him.
My daddy had a knife that he kept around there for hunting and working and whatnot, and I knew where he kept it. And I went and got it.
So there's some really beautiful stuff happening here, especially in his micro expressions. That you can't fake that stuff. That stuff is, I know. You can't fake that stuff. That stuff is just, it happens in the moment. It happens as a visceral, emotional reaction that just shows how close to the moment you really are. You know, the curling of his upper lip, things like that. Again, he's not in storytelling mode. He's observing the moment and he is experiencing the emotions of his character as he is telling the story. He understands how his character feels about what happened, about how about his father selling their land. He understands all of it, and it's just a great performance. I mean, he holds you in the palm of his hand, and it's not that he's crushing you, it's not that he's holding you there. It's a really fantastic performance, and it comes from someone being fully emotionally available. Fully in a state of heightened emotion, but also someone who is very much invested in what they are doing and saying, and never questioning it.
And it's kind of the bravery of direction to just allow the frame to just close up a little bit, because when we hit to this kind of pinnacle moment, we're a little bit wider, and then they push very slowly forward and let him fill the frame, and then that's everything that you need. Obviously, from the kind of the orientation of the room, you have this awesome kind of cross lighting, similar to this now, where you have kind of the main window drawing across the face, and it just adds such a nice shade and drama to it. I just think it looks great.
It's
He did a great job.
fantastic. It's great work. And the other thing I want to talk about is crying. He didn't plan that tear.
No.
No, there's no way you can plan that tear. Some people can cry on cue. Some people can force themselves to cry. Some people use tear sticks, and some people it just happens in the moment. All of those are legitimate. Every single one of them is legitimate, because at the end of the day, what you're trying to convey is something to the audience. Now, what I really applaud about this is that it just happened in the moment, and it's something that he ran with, and it's something that they ran with. And the crying isn't impressive. What's impressive is how deeply involved in the moment he was that tear came. Yeah.
And I would argue there are definitely performances that you can watch where you see somebody cry, but you don't care as much, right? Because for them, the crying is maybe a tool in order to get you to feel something, rather than whatever it is that you are putting across. It is what creates it. Now, as you said before, the source of the tear nobody cares about, right? It's about what it makes you feel. But you need to at least be in the moment. You need to at least not know that this single tear running down, which is going to look amazing on camera, isn't the source of the power of that scene.
The hard thing to understand is if you're not crying, where is it taking you instead?
Yeah.
You know, where is it taking you instead? Because there's always somewhere interesting for the moment to take you. And it doesn't have to be crying. For some people, crying is really easy. For others, it's very, very hard. But there's always somewhere interesting the moment can take you. And I mean, that's when we step into believability, and that's just a whole crap shell I don't want to enter right now. Okay, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. That was me and Ben talking about Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which is currently on Netflix. If you like this video, please feel free to hit us up in the comments. Let us know what you thought of it. If there's anything you want to add or talk about, let's have a conversation. Chuck it in the comments. If you really liked it, maybe share it with a friend, and subscribe to see more content. All right, guys, thank you so much. We will be back next time. That was terrible.